How's it going? This is my Dr650 and I've put 44,000 miles on it and I've absolutely thrown it through the parts catalog. So in this video, I'm going to talk about every single thing that I've done to it, what I like, what I don't like, so that way you can make a better choice for your bike. It's kind of dirty though, so I think I'm going to wash it first. There. So one of the first things that I did with this bike was get rid of the stock tank, and I went with the Acervis 5.3 tank. And I went with the black version of this because my bike was already black and I was kind of going for a murdered out look. But the clear tanks have a little bit of added functionality of being able to actually see where your gas level is in the bike, something that you cannot do with any of the color options. So Acervis does have a tank that's one size up, and if you are going to be pushing it just a little more, or you have a little bit of range anxiety just in general, that's not a bad idea. But this is plentiful for everybody. The only thing I might do is get the natural color. Great tank, absolutely love it. One of the next things that I upgraded on this bike was the headlight unit. I went with the J&S Engineering Morimoto headlamp, which is one of their higher dollar offerings, and it is expensive, but it is very, very, very good. I don't think it is a waste of money. If you're wanting to splurge on something, this is worth the splurge. I used to have some auxiliary mounted lights here, and honestly, this one is so bright that I couldn't really tell that these guys were on or off, so I wound up just taking these things off to save the weight. For me, this is all I need. I'm so happy with this headlight. And it's LED, so it should last a very, very, very long time. Up front, I also have an OBR front fender bag, which I use to carry a front tube. That means you always have a front tube on your bike, and you can run that front tube for your front or your rear wheel in a pinch. So this is something I pretty much run all the time, and then I keep a little pump in here, and so that way I don't have to run any other saddle bags if I don't feel like it. For my tank bag, I'm running a Wolfman tank bag. I've been running it for a long time, and the zippers have held up very well. I think it's a great tank bag, and I'm very pleased with it. I recommend it. I bent the stock handlebars, so for a replacement, I went with the Tusk Chubb CR High Bend with a big bar adapter kit, and then I put these Tusk Off-Road D-Flex Bark Busters on there. I've been really happy with it, especially the handlebar. However, the Tusk, some of the hardware on the Tusk connectors for the D-Flex and also for the handlebar adapter itself has shown some corrosion, which I'm not super happy with that. It's probably avoidable with a little more care, but I wish those bolts were a little more anti-corrosive. If this bolt cannot rust, this bolt could not rust too. I wish that hardware was just a little bit better. Other than that, I am happy with this handlebar unit and I would recommend it. That is something to keep in mind, and there might be another hardware provider that I'm unaware of that makes these a little more anti-corrosive than the Tusk are. It came time to replace my brake lines, so I went ahead and replaced them with steel brake lines, just kind of be done with it forever. And they do provide just a little bit more bite on the brake and theoretically will last a little bit longer than the rubber ones. However, they have worn onto my front left tube where it connects into there, so if you do go with the metal brake lines, make sure to have that protected and covered where it's touching that tube, because it will rub. As far as would I do it, the answer is no, not unless I was going to replace the lines anyway, which I was. So if you're going to replace your lines, go ahead and do some steel. If you feel like it, the other's fine, both are fine. I replaced the rear with steel as well, and it can cause the rear to lock up a little more so than you might like. So do keep that in mind too with the rear. It can be a little too aggressive on that tire. I went with the Seat Concept seat, and I like it. The only thing I would do differently is I'd probably buy the Seat Concept's tall seat because that would suit me better. I'm 6'2", so I think it would just kind of, I don't know, it would feel better for me. I like bikes to be a little bit taller. Other than that, I like the seat and I would recommend it. There are cheaper options though, such as sheepskin, and I never found the stock seat to be as horrible as everybody on the internet says it is. and this isn't as game-changing as everybody says it is either. It's a good seat, I like it, I'm not disappointed with it, but it's not as radical night and day of a difference as you would think. I went with the Ricochet skid plate, and I'm quite happy with it. I got lots of dings and dents in here that I'm glad hit this and not my engine. Now, it does add a little bit of noise when you put it on there, and it obviously adds a little bit of weight too. But if you're going to be doing any sort of serious off-roading, this is an absolute no-brainer. Buy it. If you think you might need it, buy it. I also put these Warp 9 engine covers on there, and I like them, but I think they're kind of overkill for most people's applications. Unless you're going to be dropping your bike a lot and are really worried about punching a hole in the crankcase right here, I think they're overkill. And I think they make oil changes pretty difficult too. So if you plan on dropping your bike a whole lot and being out in the middle of nowhere by yourself, sure, go ahead and put them on. They will prevent this from punching a hole in this, which is a good thing. But my personal opinion, unless you're being really aggressive off-road, you'll probably be okay without these. And they're annoying because you have to take this thing off to get to the filter. I also have a really fancy Warp 9 brake lever on the back here. This is because I dropped the bike and bent the brake very early on. This thing's definitely not worth the money, and just run your stock brake lever. It's fine. For foot pegs, I went with the IMS Adventure pegs and then the J&S lowering foot peg mounts. I really like these J&S lowering foot peg mounts, and these pegs are okay too. I would recommend both, especially these if you're just a little bit tall. These things are great. For luggage, I went with the Tusk Pannier rack with the top rack, and I really couldn't be more pleased with the setup. It's been absolutely great. I put it on and I haven't taken it off once. So I really dig it, I really like it. It's kind of a pain to take on and off, which is the reason why it has never come off again, but it holds my luggage very well, which is what it's designed to do. In the back, I have a tool tube from ProCycle, and I really like this tool tube. If you notice in the back here, I went with one of ProCycle's mounting brackets for the tag, and I don't really like it. It leaves it's like a triangle, so it just goes to here, and it leaves all of this tag exposed, and so your tag eventually gets beat up. Also, after you take the rear fender off, your bike just gets a lot more mud on it if you're riding in mud. That thing's actually there for a reason, I think, and I'm going to keep running mine and put mine back on. So if you notice, my chain is absolutely filthy, but if you look a little harder, you'll also notice that I don't have a chain guard on. That's because the one that I bought from J&S Engineering cracked on me. So I wouldn't recommend one of those aluminum chain guards. I'd recommend running one of the stock plastic ones for as long as you can. Now, unfortunately, I was an idiot and threw my plastic one away, so now I ordered another aluminum one because they're about the same price. I also ran a J&S Engineering chain guide for a little bit, but it made such a racket that I almost immediately took it off and put the stock one back on. So I just leave this whole section stock. And as far as chains is concerned, the stock chain lasted just as long as the DID VX top dollar chain. They both lasted around 20,000 miles. In fact, this one is starting to kink up a little bit before the stock one did, if my memory serves correctly. That was 20,000 miles ago. I don't really remember. They're both great chains and both will last you around 20,000 miles. I don't think there's much point in paying extra for the DID, even though I did again.
Oh yes, the good stuff.
So I put the J&S Engineering case saver on the front, and I think it's a bit overkill, honestly, for the DR. For one, it has a cush drive. For two, it's running a big beefy 525 chain. And three, it's kind of detuned and doesn't produce that much horsepower, so nobody's just really snapping chains on this bike. So I think you can get away without running this thing. It's also kind of a pain to take it on and off. You can buy this if you want to, but I don't think you have to unless you're really just riding very aggressively. Now I put the Warp 9 timing inspection caps on here after I took the stock ones off. And I would recommend doing that because I did slightly strip out my stock ones taking them off, and they are notorious to strip. And I've taken these off several times and they have held up just phenomenally. So after you take your stock ones out to check your valves for the first time, I would recommend switching them out with these. I think these are a good idea. for the carburetor, I went with the ProCycle Jet Kit, and I cut open my airbox. And it does supply a little bit more power, but it also adds a good bit of adjustability if you're going to be riding in different altitudes. I recommend it, but the stock's not horrible either. You can run that for a while and it's not going to hurt anything. Last but definitely not least, let's talk about suspension. I went with the Cogent direct drop-in cartridges, and then I went with a slightly stiffer spring to match my body weight, and I really like it. Now, I rode the stock suspension for roughly 30,000 miles, and it gets a lot of hate, but it's fine. You can go a long ways with a lot of gear and a lot of weight on the stock suspension. I think this bike is weighted for 400 pounds carrying capacity, and I don't think you have to immediately jump into this bike and change the suspension no matter what they say on the internet. Now, if you are looking for something slightly more aggressive, I think this is a great solution. I absolutely love it. But it does get rid of some of the plushiness from the Suzuki, which is also something that a lot of people really love, and then they switch over and they miss it a little bit. So you are trading something. You're trading a very plush Cadillac for, you know, a stiffer suspension. So keep that in mind. My shock right now is actually stock, but I have upgraded the spring. And when you do that and put a heavier spring on the stock shock, it does make it better, especially if that spring is matching your weight. It is better than stock. But it does add a bit of a pogo effect to the bike. Now, I have the Cogent new shock inside, and I can't wait to get that on and try it out, and that should get rid of that pogo effect. But I would say if you're going to do the front, you definitely do need to add stiffer springs to the rear as well, or else you're going to wind up with kind of a squatted bike, and that's not going to be good. But you are going to get a bit of a pogo effect too, so there's trade-offs to these types of things. And ideally, of course, you would just do it all at once so everything is nice the first time. I've been running the same battery tender for my USB. I got it at Walmart 5 years ago, and it's been melted on the exhaust, rained on, full of mud, and this thing still works. So I recommend these little guys. It is full of dirt now. It might be finally done for. All right, so that just about wraps it up. All right, so that concludes the video. Till next time, y'all take care.